Hey there, welcome to Kind on the Mind. My name is Pauline, and I'm a senior in high school. Today, I'm accompanied by my co-host, Rod.
Hello, everybody.
So, just a bit about me. I am a senior Girl Scout who is creating this podcast as my Gold Award project. We're here in place to spread awareness, break down stigmas, and share support about mental disorders. And as a friendly reminder, we're not here to diagnose or make general assumptions about any disorders or people who have them. We just want to share some information to hopefully spread some comfort about all this type of things. So, just a little bit of background on why I chose to make a mental health podcast for my project when I could have chosen any other topic or any other project. Personally, in my life, I have seen where mental health has hit hard for a lot of my loved ones, and it was very difficult just seeing them go through a lot of very tough situations that they often didn't have control over. So I want to be able to just spread awareness and let people know the truth about these types of things, along with hopefully spreading some comfort with knowing that you aren't alone through all of this. So yeah.
And for myself, when Pauline reached out to me about her mission on starting this podcast to kind of help people with their mental health and just kind of spread awareness, I had a really strong resonance with that because I know personally I've had my own fair share of those really dark moments when I just kind of need someone to reach out and lend a hand to pull like me back into that good place. So being able to kind of forward that to other people who I might not even know, but just knowing that I'm able to kind of help them a little bit, it just sounded really nice, and I'd like to help Pauline on that mission.
Yeah, so I'm very thankful for that. So now that you know a little bit about us and why we're doing this today, let's jump straight into today's very first episode of our podcast, and we're going to be talking about stress.
And we would like our audience to please keep in mind that we are targeting this podcast towards the 13 to 18-year-old age range, just because we find that the main culprits of individuals who are under intense amounts of stress are typically middle school and high school students. As you're a teenager, your body's changing, your life's changing, and you have a lot more academic just tension in that regard because you have more classes. You have like periods 1 through 6. Some even have like those 0 periods, and it's just a lot more stress on that person.
Right, and we just want to make sure that students are able to have a resource to listen to in case that they feel like they're struggling through all of that. So, to get started, what is stress?
Well, I mean, in short, stress is just kind of that feeling of being overwhelmed and unable to cope with your mental and emotional pressures. You're feeling triggered because you have a lot of situations out of your control, like the aforementioned extra classes or changes in your body and friend group. You're experiencing a lot of new things because now, as you're growing older, you have a lot more options, access to new things that you weren't able to do when you were younger. And you have a lot more things that are now kind of imposing this threatening feeling because you're becoming an adult, but you also have these things that are kind of opposing your growth into that age.
Right, yeah. And biologically, when our bodies undergo stress, we tend to go into this fight or flight mode, which basically you can either do something about it or you freeze in place. And that activates our immune system, and its ability to fight off antigens is therefore reduced. And this is why we're more susceptible to infections. And personally, for me, when it comes to stress as a student, it's been honestly a lot just having to deal with everything that I've put on my plate. So for me, I was an officer of 5 different clubs, meaning I was president for two, and on top of that, I was also committed into a 4-year program for marching band, and later on, for the last 2 years, I became a leader through that experience as well. And I've also just been taking a bunch of extracurriculars and online classes outside of school and whatnot. And because of all of that, it did lead to a bunch of buildup and stress from those experiences, especially with band, because that's a physically, mentally, and emotionally draining activity. Although there are great aspects of it, like don't get me wrong, if you guys are interested or thinking about joining marching band, I really recommend it because that's where I genuinely made some of my closest relationships, and I kind of grew closer to just a lot of people that I never knew that I would have in my life. So if you're interested, please join it. But it was very tasking on my just like overall lifestyle because we would be out in the sun that's like 100 degrees, it's California, but we'd be out here in 100-degree weather and just marching for like 12 hours and like doing all these like drills and just exercises to train our bodies. on top of having that musicality of playing in time and marching to the beat, along with just having all those rhythms and everything sound clean and precise, it became a lot in general. And especially with uptaking those leadership responsibilities, it was just an extra factor that added on to stress. So for me, stress has been fairly prevalent in all of my life, especially with these activities. So that's just a little bit about my personal experiences with stress.
Now, while I can't exactly relate to Pauline on that same level of having these managerial duties because and officer positions, just because I don't really have those same connections. I can say I've experienced intense stress myself, just academically and then also kind of personally, family health wise, just with relatives and all that. But and before I say this next part, I do recognize that it's cliche, but I do want to say that during the COVID-19 pandemic era with distance learning and online learning, that part honestly was just a giant struggle. And I know for a lot of people that I know too, that putting a damper on their lifestyle and their habits. So I like stress, it can be applied to anyone. You don't have to have those same positions and duties or extracurriculars. You can just be an ordinary student, but just know that like stress is normal and there are ways to deal with it.
Right, yeah. Like Roderick and I have shared a lot of similarities with just like what he was saying with those familial or academic stresses, but we also did lead very different lives. So we just want to let you know that stress affects everyone, like what Rod was saying, and it just attacks like people on all sorts of like the spectrum of like where you are in your life. So yeah. Going off of our personal experiences, we know that everyone undergoes different forms of stress and at different levels. And according to Gallup, a global analytics and advice firm, adults in 115 countries and areas were asked if they had 5 specific negative experiences on the day that they were preceding the survey. So, as a result, 4 out of 10 of these adults said that they had experienced worry at 40% or stress at 40%. And for students, nearly half or 49% of all these students reported feeling a great deal of stress on a daily basis, while 31% reported feeling somewhat stressed on a daily basis. So, females reported significantly higher levels of stress compared to males, and this was seen at 60% compared to 41%.
Going back to that, especially that one statistic about the 49% of all students reporting feeling that great deal of stress, that just means that among the population of students, there's definitely some kind of common factors or causes of stress. And specifically for high school students, I'd like to point out that those would be fear of failing or disappointing your parents because you're still kind of a child, but you're kind of growing up at that same time, but you're still looking for that parent approval. You have these harder classes, especially APs in a junior and senior year, and there's just new topics that are just tougher. You also have responsibilities such as if some people get a job, so now they're balancing academics, social life, and work. There's also the fact that you kind of have this social pressure or a need to fit in, so you have to find a niche or a clique that you find comfortable in, so you can kind of like assimilate into that group of people. You have concerns about college, especially college and college applications. That just kind of affects how you're thinking about the future. You got that roadmap planned out, what you want to do, where you want to go, and it's just a lot of toll on someone.
Right, yeah. And with all these causes of stress as a student, although there are also just many more that, they vary depending on like your situation, who you are, what you got going on, they all end up leading to certain effects and symptoms that are felt. And although stress tends to just be seen as more of a mental or emotional type of burden, sometimes it often does actually lead to physical symptoms that coincide very much so, and these would include like aches and pains, chest pains, having trouble with sleeping, such as which could potentially lead to like things like insomnia, headaches, dizziness, shaking, high blood pressure, muscle tension or jaw clenching, and in general just having a really tense body just whenever you're doing things just in your own day. And with these physical symptoms, like I stated earlier, there were emotional and mental symptoms, and these can definitely tie into more severe things such as disorders, which include anxiety, depression, panic attacks, and sadness. And with all of this, this also just leads to unhealthy behaviors in general, such as a continuous cycle of potential bad habits, including like overeating. So with all of this, it just is something that just builds up over time with the amount of stress that people feel, especially as students are still growing up and learning about themselves and figuring out how they want to like go about life. So yeah.
Now, aside from these symptoms that we've been able to categorize more as physical or emotional and mental, there's also the topic of burnout, which kind of is a culmination of everything. It has some physical effects, emotional effects, because burnout is that state of emotional, physical, and just the mental exhaustion caused by that excessive and prolonged stress on a person. And often, when you're under like this much stress and you're in a burnout, it's hard to realize that you're in this kind of struggling position, and it's harder to, with not being able to know where you are, it's hard to reach out and kind of analyze and try to build yourself up. So some important things to figure out when you're under stress and just make sure that you're not within a burnout will be to ask yourself things such as, have you become more cynical or critical of what you're doing or of other people or just in general? Do you have trouble just kind of getting started, just kind of trying to get out of the bed? Is it hard to work? You're always like trying to relax or just avoid the responsibilities? Do you lack the energy to be productive? Kind of going off what I just said, but more in depth of, that you have a lot of work to do, but you just can't find the motivation to. Are you struggling to concentrate, especially in things like classes or at home where you have all these abilities to go, like, oh, if you want to surf social media or play games or do whatever other hobby instead of address your responsibilities? Do you lack satisfaction, especially from your achievements? Because if you're doing things that you love to do, but you're no longer finding enjoyment out of it, that's just going to take an even bigger toll on you and make your burnout even stronger. And lastly, especially, have your sleep habits changed. Because as a teenager, it's very important that you get a lot of sleep because you're in this big growing phase. And a lot of teenagers already struggle from staying up late at night because of homework and waking up really early because of school.
Right. And with all these, although these are signs of burnout that are often seen, or like questions you can ask yourself with burnout, tied into certain things you see about yourself or about other people, these also are dependent again on your situation. So they A may not be applicable to everyone, and B, they could be more extreme or less extreme. So at the end of the day, you just have to maybe talk to some people and see if these questions really are applicable to you, or if it like is maybe something else that's going on. But with all of these also do end up leading oftentimes to the different signs of burnout that people may have because of the questions that they ask themselves. So different signs of burnout could include like chronic fatigue, and this means like there's lack of energy or feeling tired most days, whether that be physically or emotionally. There's just like a lot of exhaustion that occurs, and honestly just some fear of what's coming up, whether it's just like what's going to be happening the next day, or like if there's going to be a next test or project, or just colleges for like seniors that are here. And this also ties into just like insomnia, because when you're having that fear, it causes you to have trouble like falling asleep, and you end up staying awake even though you are like physically burnt out and just exhausted, but you're just unable to sleep no matter what you do. This also leads to just forgetfulness and impaired concentration and attention. So when you're trying to focus on something, it's just difficult for you to do so, and you just lose track of like what's going on sometimes. And on top of that, there's also just loss of appetite, with like maybe losing weight or skipping meals, but it feeling like you don't have the desire to eat. Like if you are hungry or if you don't feel hungry, you just don't have that desire to like go eat. There's also like what I stated earlier, anxiety, because of like the tension and worriness, and this could like progress to cause other problems in your personal life as well. And adding on to that, there's like the depression that is caused from it. So these are more of these, again, more severe like mental disorders. So obviously not everyone who is burned out will just automatically have anxiety or depression. I want to stress that, kind of ironically stress that, just because I don't want people to feel like if they're like stressed and that leads to burnout, they automatically have like depression or anxiety or anything. But yeah, these are some like symptoms that can occur. And this also, to add on to that, this could show like when you're stressed, it can show signs of cynicism and detachment, like loss of enjoyment, like what Roderick was talking about, and pessimism, just negative talk, whether it's about yourself or about other things. You just see the world in a different light, and it often is more negative than positive. And you might start having more trust issues amongst like even loved ones, like family and friends and everything like that. And these trust issues could lead into the isolation that you potentially may feel because you don't want to socialize and you just don't want to be with people. And in certain extreme cases, when you're like angry when someone talks to you, you could be angry when someone talks to you just in general, whether they're saying something good or bad, that you just be upset at it, or you come early or late to avoid certain interactions and just go out of your way to make sure that you're not associating yourself with certain people or just people in general. And also what Roderick was talking about earlier with those questions, you could also see signs of ineffectiveness and a lack of accomplishment. So feelings of apathy and hopelessness could occur, and certain questions that could like run through your head, or like, what's the point, or why am I even doing this, or like, nothing is right, nothing matters. And this could also lead to increased irritability with these like lack of accomplishments, because you feel like you're not effective, or like you can't do things efficiently or effectively. And this also just leads to a lack of productivity and poor performance in general. And I know I already stated this, but I just want to emphasize that, again, if you have some of these symptoms, obviously if you're stressed and burnt out, you're not going to experience every single one of these symptoms just simultaneously, nor will they be as extreme as some of the ways we're describing. But these definitely are potential signs or red flags that, hey, you should go talk to someone, whether it's a loved one or if it's like a health professional, just to see where you are, or even just check in with yourself. Use those questions that Roderick was talking about and just check in with yourself and see like how you are and like what's going on, just to make sure that they don't get to certain extents like the mental disorders, like I said earlier, with depression, anxiety, insomnia, and all of that. For our next segment, we were able to interview some mental health professionals who are willing to share their input regarding students and stress. However, to remain anonymous and maintain privacy, we'll be having our good friend William speaking on behalf of them.
So, just to give a little background information on our interviewees today, our mental health professional number one has a bachelor's in psychology with a leadership minor and a master's in educational counseling with a PPS, which is a pupil personal services credential, both from Azusa Pacific University. For our second mental health professional, they have a bachelor's in psychology and social behavior with a minor in anthropology from UC Irvine, a MS in psychology from Cal Poly Pomona, and a school counseling credential, a PPSC, from Brandman University, now known as the University of Massachusetts Global. They are also a licensed marriage and family therapist.
And just to let you guys know, as we ask these questions and hear their responses, we will only be hearing one response per question, because we either combined their responses to make one larger one, or we felt that one response summed up both of theirs very well. So we won't be having two people speaking, but they both did contribute to the answers today. So to get started, our first question is, what is your personal definition of stress? It can refer to any physical, mental, emotional, or any other form of stress.
Any external situation that causes a person to feel overwhelmed and feel the inability to cope effectively or in a healthy manner. Stress can be physical, emotional, and/or psychological. It is your body's response to something that requires immediate attention or action.
Yeah, that makes sense. I personally agree with that definition, especially with the immediate attention or action part, since stress in the past and even now causes me to kind of feel that sense of urgency with everything. For our second question, we would like to ask, what are some common trends and habits of teenagers affected by stress?
Common trends are avoidance, anxiety, difficulty sleeping, irritability and mood shifts, change in eating habits, strained interpersonal relationships, and unhealthy coping strategies such as substance use.
I totally agree with these common trends, just because as a student going through all these things, I feel like difficulty sleeping and irritable mood, along with just those types of emotional shifts, tends to be the main symptoms that I feel when I go through stress, just because they just hit me harder basically. But I feel like a lot of my friends, just whether they're like older or younger than me or just around the same age, they all tend to think that those are the most common symptoms amongst themselves as well, just because of how it affects them. So yeah, moving on to our third question. For individuals overwhelmed or driven by their stresses, what are good mechanisms for taking a step back and identifying any stressors?
Our first professional says, taking a look at what is causing the stress. Is it a person? Is it a situation? Is it copious amounts of homework due and you are feeling overwhelmed? By seeing what may be causing the stress, it can help identify the steps on what to do next for healthy coping skills. We cannot always control the situations, but we can control how we respond to them. Our second professional says, you need to focus on the present moment. Students that are stressed often keep pushing forward and ignore the signs of being overwhelmed. They're often thinking about the future and everything they believe that needs to get done. It is important to reflect on what you are trying to accomplish in the moment and how each task is impacting you physically, emotionally, and psychologically day by day.
I can confidently say that what our mental health professionals have suggested here are unseen miracle workers, as just putting in that effort to take those kind of like steps back and see things for how they are has definitely helped myself and some of my close friends too in their efforts to de stress and kind of get their minds back on track. And while I know that kind of sounds like a cliche, it's like, oh, take a second, take it all like step by step, this is just kind of one of those things that's like, it's a true thing in life that you don't kind of understand or like appreciate until you're able to do it for yourself, and then you kind of see the real value in it. Anyways, for our next question, we will be asking, nearing testing time, what are some tips, tricks, recommendations for students to de-stress before and after?
Our first professional says, take a deep breath, prepare and study for the test. Drink water, get a good balanced, healthy meal, make sure you get enough sleep, and ask for help when needed. Our second professional says, you have to make sure you are engaging in self-care. Create a plan ahead of time of how you will prepare. Make sure you add time to do something enjoyable along the way. Good sleeping and healthy eating are extremely important, and connecting with friends or whoever your support system is also important as well. Absolutely ask for help if you are feeling overwhelmed. After testing, make sure you do something enjoyable or relaxing. It is not emotionally helpful to focus on anything you could have done differently.
For me, being able to plan allows me to visually see what I have upcoming, how I can prioritize certain subjects, and find the time to take breaks in between, whether that's spending time with my dog, he's this cute little Pomeranian, or spending time on YouTube. And in all honesty, I feel that referencing the mental health professionals' advice about relaxing afterwards rather than focusing on what I could change is something I need to implement more into my life, simply because that's what I feel like, honestly, a lot of us do as well. When we feel like we could have performed better, we choose to fixate on how else we could have calculated something or another way to comprehend certain texts, but we just need to remember that after it's over, we deserve a break from our hard work and to do something fun. Anyways, moving past that little spiel of mine, question 5 asks, typically, what are some common practices for establishing safe spaces for individuals to share openly?
Making sure that you are sharing with the right people. Most of us have a small inner circle of friends and or family that help us feel comfortable and safe. Those are the people you need to talk with when feeling overly stressed. Also, communicate directly. No one is a mind reader. If you need to talk with someone about a sensitive topic, let them know directly that you want to talk about something that is affecting you, that you need help, or that you just need to vent. That will help them know how to best support you.
From my experience, I find that talking to friends is an especially convenient method of venting out, since those people are usually the ones that are around your own age range, and therefore they kind of like they might be going through similar things, and some that have gone through and come through like positively might know how to help you through them. Though, just like our professional said, there are several different outlets for those individuals to be able to share, extending not only from like the friends and family range, but even to people such as professional counselors and therapists. Moving on to our sixth question, what are some ways students can help their peers with the stresses and difficulties they may face?
Be a great listener. Sometimes people don't always need advice or feedback. Maybe they just need a good listening ear. It can be important to vent and let your feelings out, but to also remember that the negative feelings aren't permanent. Life has ups and downs, and there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Kindness and support are great qualities to have when a peer is reaching out for help or is feeling stressed. It is important to complete all of your responsibilities, but self-care should also be a priority in one's life. If I have a friend that is very stressed and seems a little down, I try to listen with compassion, teach them some great coping skills they can maybe utilize, and I will try to brighten their day by offering to do something fun, like taking them on a nice walk or hike, or to get some fresh air and help ease stress.
For me specifically, I feel like that being able to vent has honestly been beyond helpful and on like just with any part of my life, whether it was in middle school or high school. I feel like just being there with someone and having them listen to me and just like not even just giving advice like what the mental health professionals said, just being able to lend a listening ear just means so much because there's somebody there actually investing their time and effort to hear about your situation, and allows you to get that weight off of your chest because it shouldn't be something that's weighing you down. So being able to have those people in your life is very helpful, especially as a reminder that these like negative feelings and everything going on, it's not going to be forever. And having those people just constantly reminding you of that, it just really helps. And on top of that, though, with all of that stuff, you just want to make sure that like you're not trying to push yourself too hard with either sharing with other people or with having to reach out to other people as well, because you need to make sure at the end of the day that you're just making sure that you're okay with all of this. And being able to help peers and everything is great, and being able to reach out to them, especially if they're feeling down or if they're just out of it, is honestly something that is a gift because sometimes it's hard for us to see when others are hurting. So being able to just help others already is just amazing. But you just have to know how and when to offer to people. So just remember that if you can't help yourself, you can't help others. And in all honesty, the kind of, I guess, safety warning when you go on airplanes, I know it's been kind of COVID season, so we haven't been on an airplane in a while, but whenever they talk about how you need to put on your safety mask or your like air mask first before you put it on others, that's really valid, because if you can't help yourself, there's literally no way that you can help other people, because you are going to be physically restricted from being able to help people, especially in that sense. But in general, if you can't find a way to be stable in your own life, there's not going to be a way for you to help others. So just make sure that as you're helping other people, just be there for them and listen to them, but know where your personal limitations are so that they can later on help you in return, or that you can reach out to other people and get that same treatment so that you're later on okay. So with all of that, we'll move on to our final question. Are there any accessible resources that you, the mental health professionals, know of that are reliable and well-known to aid students in their need of support?
Check out these wellness resources, newsletters, and community resources for students, parents, and anyone in general, such as the California Department of Education's Help for Students in Crisis link page, TherapistAid, and GetSelfHelp.
All right, I'd like to give a big thank you to our mental health professionals again for their insight on stress for students and everything like that. For those of you who are still listening, first of all, thank you so much for being here. And second, we'd like to share some reminders and encouragements that are often forgotten amidst the busyness of life.
First off, we just like to let all our listeners, and honestly just anyone who that's dealing with stresses of their own, regardless of age range, position, or whatever you might be working on, that you are not alone in your position of being under the stress, because anyone can have like these tendencies of, oh, I have so much stuff on my plate. Becoming a big struggle, especially for high school students with like big things such as AP tests, college decisions, those upcoming exams, and anything else really. It builds up, but you're not alone, and everyone together will all get through it.
Right, yeah. Stress can hit anyone, and regardless of where you are right now and your feelings about the future, know that it will be okay with time, and that everyone's path of success looks different.
And honestly, for like probably one of the most important things for anyone to remember is that to just kind of step back from whatever they're dealing with and just take a deep breath. Lay out what you have in front of you, look at it, analyze it, dissect it, make a plan, because everyone, and especially those people that are under stress, know just how stressful it is to think of what they're going through and what's to come, and it just starts to become a big snowball effect. And that's why it's just helpful to kind of to take a step back, relax, and just take life one day at a time.
Right, yeah. And I know a lot of these reminders and everything, they tend to be cliche, or they are overused by like maybe some adults that you hear all over the place. So we wanted to also share some examples of people who had all different walks of life, different backgrounds, and different just like ways that they achieved their version of success through whatever that they did. And a lot of these people you'll actually know just because, these are everyday people, but they worked out to where like they found a way that was best for them. So our first example is Steven Spielberg. So as you guys know, he's most successful director, screenwriter, and producer of all time. His music and everything has been seen in Jaws, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, E.T., Schindler's List, stuff like that. And he was nominated for 17 Academy Awards, oh my goodness, and won 3 Oscars. So he's a pretty well-known guy, and he's got a lot going for him because of how he worked up to that point, but a lot of people don't know his background. So he was actually rejected from the University of Southern California School of Theater, Film, and Television 3 separate times. He did get accepted by another school, but dropped out to pursue directing. And he also dropped out of college and didn't go back to complete his work for Cal State Long Beach degree until 2002. And also just throughout his life, he had actually gotten a lot of C's, especially in high school. So although right now he is seen as a very, very successful person, he actually did struggle with a lot of his academic career. And he just came from somewhere who he was actually rejected from college and even chose to drop out. So yeah.
I mean, continuing on this kind of path of showing off people that, they had their own struggles but are still able to be successful, going from like the pop culture scene of Steven Spielberg, for any of our techie type audience, if you know like Dell laptops, the Michael Dell, he dropped out of the University of Texas at 19 with $1,000 to start his small business, and he started selling computers. Hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with this. And originally, though he started off as a pre-med student because his parents wanted him to be a doctor, he then became the now founder and CEO of Dell Incorporated.
Right, yeah. So far we have Steven Spielberg, Michael Dell, both people who either didn't get a college degree like Michael Dell, or they dropped out / didn't get accepted to places. We're now moving on to people who came from community college. So Eileen Collins, she came from Corning Community College, and although she isn't as well known, she was based in New York, and right now she is 65 years old, but she became what a lot of people find is originally their dream job when they are younger, but she became an astronaut, and now she's living a life where she's very happy and successful with what she's doing despite coming from a community college.
Going on not only from community college, but now moving up to state colleges. Hopefully this person, some of you guys know them, probably more food lover audience would know them. Guy Fieri. He was born in Ohio, grew up in California. He studied abroad in Chantilly, France, and graduated from the University of Las Vegas in Nevada with a degree in hospitality management.
Right, and Guy Fieri nowadays, he just has all these restaurants. He's known for the food business. You see him on Food Network.
Drugs.
I know, right? So you just see him everywhere. He's this really popular guy. You can already picture what he looks like. He's got that fiery vest along with that, or not vest, but you know what I mean, button-up t-shirt. And he's got that flame-looking hair with all them spikes. But you just know who he is. He's an iconic person that was able to come from an out-of-state college. So along with him, there's just other people who graduated for example, from Cal State, such as Palmer Luckey. She came from CSULB, which is Cal State Long Beach. She was an entrepreneur, and she founded Oculus VR. If you guys have ever played with VR, virtual reality, I've seen it. It's been very cool, but also sometimes I can get motion sickness from it. But also, she's the designer for it, and she's just 29 years old. And also somebody who graduated from a UC is Steve Wozniak. You guys probably know him. He graduated from Berkeley and became the co-founder of Apple and is currently 71 years old. So the reason why that we bring up all these people that come from different walks of life, whether it's a college from out of state or a community college or a UC, or just even was rejected or dropped out from college, the reason why we bring them up is because they ended up following their passions in life, and they created their own definition of success for themselves. So I know, again, there can be many cliches that honestly don't help you with kind of dealing with the future and what's going on, but just remember that it's okay to worry and it's okay to be scared of certain things. But just know that at the end of the day, people like Guy Fieri, Steven Spielberg, and Steve Wozniak are just regular, ordinary people that pushed for what they believed in, and they were able to create what they defined as success.
Now, I hope all of you are feeling a bit more reassured on the fact that you will succeed in life, and trust me, you will. But before you get out there achieving a greatness, don't forget that we got to go nip those stresses that are kind of taking a toll on you right now in the bud. So our first tip on relieving your own stresses would be to get active. That physical activity, it's going to pump those feel-good endorphins that enhance your personal sense of well-being. And I know, especially coming out of the pandemic and kind of just being in those later stages, it's nice to be able to get out there, just kind of breathe that fresh air. That physical activity, it's also going to force you to refocus your mind on those body movements, and that's going to prevent you from thinking about those contributors to your stress. And overall, you're going to be feeling better mentally and physically, and you just kind of you get to hang out and do whatever you like.
Yeah, and honestly, I know a lot of people don't tend to flock towards exercising, but it really helps. From a personal experience, you just feel so much lighter because you're able to just like get your mind off of everything going on and you don't have to really think about it. And if you guys are unable to go outside, get some exercise because of time or location constraints, you guys can always try meditation. And it comes in many forms. Then those forms include guided meditation, guided imagery, and visualization. And it helps instill a quiet sense of calm, peace, and balance to fight off all those thoughts that may be crowding your mind.
I gotta say, a personal outlet that I favor would be journaling because you're just kind of writing down your thoughts, get to put out there what's been keeping you stressed, as if you're kind of like physically releasing it. Because I know sometimes it's nice to be able to talk to someone, but not everyone's always available, or maybe you just feel more comfortable talking to yourself or like a sheet of paper, and you're still able to get those thoughts off your mind. And then even sometimes, if you know, like you write it out, you can crumple it up, throw it away, out of sight, out of mind, out of just it's all out there and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And I gotta say, an added benefit of this one, at least for me, maybe it helps you guys too, just writing down things. Sometimes I'm able to jot down like little extra notes to myself and tidbits like, oh yeah, don't forget to do this, and it just helps because I'm kind of forgetful.
Yeah, same here, honestly. It's just also just like a really manageable way to just kind of take control of your stress and be like, yeah, I know this is kind of pressing and this is kind of urgent or scary, but it doesn't have to control your life, you know? So, one final thing we'd like to say that helps relieve stress is connecting with family and friends. So, oftentimes when people are stressed, they tend to isolate themselves, but social interaction is a great stress reliever as it serves as a distraction from everyday stressors. And talking to others about how you've been feeling is beneficial since it can help you release the stress. And the people around you can often come up with ways to help you through the stress. And at the end of the day, loved ones like families and friends are your ultimate support system.
Going like back over our four methods, getting active, meditating, journaling, and like Pauline just said, connecting with your friends and family. Sometimes you need something to kind of like jumpstart that activity. So some good resources to help you learn more about those stresses and kind of help you de-stress would be like phone features such as like things that reduce noise or like white noise videos, apps that track sleep, everyday exercise too, or like calming music and journaling reflections. Just anything you can to kind of help remind you to do it and just kind of keep you on track would be nice.
Right. Yeah, definitely. For me, I'm not the best with committing to long-term things, and that's why for me personally, I don't watch Netflix like series just because I feel like I can't commit to how long like each series and season is. So just having these apps and like the ability to just have something give you a reminder at a set time just honestly helps. And for like protective factors for stress, honestly having a stable support system, getting 7 hours of sleep, and like eating healthy foods along with staying hydrated really help you physically so that it can help you in long term mentally and emotionally, along with taking time to recognize and accept your emotions. Because sometimes we just get so caught up in whatever's going on that we tend to just push those emotions aside or brush past them, saying that I'll deal with it later. Right now, I've got a project tomorrow. But in all honesty, being able to just take care of your emotions will help you in the long run and be able to help you stay focused on that project and help you give your full time and energy to all of that. So, yeah. Thank you so much for listening in for today's podcast. I hope you're able to learn something new, and if you're a student, recognize that these struggles are understood by many besides yourself. There are ways to alleviate this stress, and that at the end of the day, despite all that you feel like is going on, it will be okay.
And for any of our listeners that would like to see anything that we've talked about or just kind of contact us, in the description below, there will be all the resources we reference to find our information, along with the statistics and any additional resources to help learn more and take care of your own stress. You can also follow us at Kind on the Mind on Instagram and Facebook, and here on YouTube, where the links will also be here in the description. And if you have any other inquiries, business or personal, you can email us at kindonthemind@gmail.com.
So, once again, I'm Pauline.
I'm Roderick.
And see you guys next time on Kind on the Mind.